Hello, this is Filipino explaining. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Division of Complex Numbers. Division of complex numbers. I have already looked at addition, subtraction, multiplication, and now we're looking at division of complex numbers. Given two complex numbers, z1 and z2, z1 as a plus bi, and z2 as c plus di. So z1 over z2 is equals to z1 is a plus bi over c plus di. Are we there? So the first step, we rationalize the denominator by multiplying the numerator and the denominator by the conjugate of the denominator. When I say the conjugate, I mean if for example, if z is equals to a plus bi, are we there? The conjugate of z is written as z bar, z and a bar at the top of it, which is equals to a, so a minus bi. So this is the conjugate of z. Z bar is the conjugate of z. If z, we have a addition sign between a and bi, then the conjugate will be a minus bi. Are we there? So as you have said that we rationalize the denominator by multiplying the numerator and the denominator by the conjugate of the denominator. So the conjugate of the denominator will be c minus di. So we multiply c minus di, then we carry out the operation. A, remember here is multiplication, sign multiplication. So it's a times c is ac minus a times di is a di plus bi times c is c or b ci out there. Then bi times negative di is minus bdi squared over c times c is c squared, c times negative di is negative c di plus di times c positive is c di or dci, no problem. Then di times negative di is negative d squared I squared. Are we there? And this becomes AC minus ADI plus BCI. Remember, you can remember here BDI squared I squared is equals to negative 1. So here since it's minus BDI squared, this will be negative. So a negative, we multiply by negative BD, we get a positive BD. A positive BD plus BD over C squared. C squared is positive ADI. Yes, no, it's here, sorry. C squared, you have CDI, positive CDI, negative CDI, so they cancel out, or negative CDI plus CDI is 0. So here is the whole of this will be 0. We remain with CI minus DI squared, DI squared, I squared. But remember, I squared is equal to negative 1. So this negative 1 times negative DI will be a positive, D squared. Are we there? Hope you're following. Okay. So at that point, the next step is to collect like terms. In the numerator, you have AC plus BD. These are the real parts because they don't have this I. Then minus, yes, A, this plus in brackets we have BC minus AD I over C squared plus D squared. Hope you're together. This can be your final answer. This can be your final answer, or you can separate the numerators. The numerator can separate the imaginary parts and the real parts of the numerator, and each of them you divide with the denominator which is common. So A C plus B D over C squared plus D squared plus BC minus AD I over C squared plus D squared. If you write this way, it's okay. This way is okay. It's also okay, but this is better because it has shown you, or separated, or it has shown the real parts on one side and imaginary parts separately. Thank you so much for watching. Till next time, bye bye.